Welcome to the Boss It Weekly podcast, a no-nonsense, no-hype, frank and close-up analysis of what is currently working and what is not in the world of software. The Boss It podcast is packed with major takeaways for software business owners and managers. So, let's begin.
And it's Boss It time again, and this week I've got somebody that's probably got more to say than we can cover in 30 minutes. He's an entrepreneur, he's an investor, he's an advisor, he's a speaker, and he's a best-selling author. So that's not bad for a start. Let's see what he's going to do with the rest of his career, eh? His name is Marek Zmyslowski. I'm
great.
Sorry, Marek. I did try. Go for it. Tell us your name.
You did well. Thanks for the invitation, Mark. It's Zmyslowski, but like we just discussed, since I'm Polish, it's a Polish name. You might want to drink a shot of vodka before trying to pronounce Polish names.
It is quite a tough one, I must admit, but I will get round to it. I'm going to go away and practice that one.
Cool.
We had a quick chat beforehand. We've never met, which is unusual because most of my guests I've sort of met and I know quite well. So this is going to be a little bit different, but I've taken a few notes and I've been looking at your background. Some really interesting things to talk about. But first of all, give us a little bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, I'm 34.
Yep.
34, Polish born and raised. I did the classical startup founder route that you read about on Forbes, meaning obviously I dropped out of university on my freshman year because I thought I'm going to be second Mark Zuckerberg. Obviously that didn't work out. I did got myself into startups in Poland, did a couple of smaller or bigger exits, which was like in the early 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those were the Polish years. And then I got myself into the technology businesses in sub-Saharan Africa, believe it or not. I was working for a big investment fund. That's how you could call the company called Rocket Internet, which is one of the biggest guys in the sector. They sent me to Nigeria for a 6-month project, and those 6 months turned into 5 years. And sub-Saharan Africa has given me the most extreme adventures of my life. It's been already more than 8 years since I'm in the region. I just did 5 years in Nigeria, then I moved to South Africa. And in terms of those extreme adventures, on one side, we were able to build a pretty big e-commerce group because we did an IPO last year on New York Stock Exchange.
Yes.
But on the other side, I also had a taste of the famous Nigerian toughness of the market, including corruption, because essentially one of the business partners that I had to deal with essentially bribed the Nigerian police in order to force me to sell the company. And even for 6 months, I was on the Interpol most wanted list, because that's the funny thing about us living in a global village. You get wanted anywhere in the world.
Yes.
You immediately land on those global on that global list. It took me 2 years really to fix all those issues. And those two extremes of my last 10 years of professional life, which is on one side building big business, relatively big, on the other side running away from corruption and police, I turned into a book, which I recently published called Chasing Black Unicorns. And I think that's my story. That was a long 90 seconds. Yeah.
No, that was good. I mean, Nigeria. Now, let's be honest here. When anyone in the software tech industry, or probably any area of industry, mentions Nigeria, the first thing that comes up is corruption. That's been my experience. I've had clients that have worked in that region. And, I mean, it seems a shame because you were going over there to help stimulate the economy and help with entrepreneurship and so on. They're shooting themselves in the foot, even the spam emails that come out of Nigeria, what's that all about? Because they're just killing themselves.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie, really. Yeah. So, by the way, funny thing about those spam emails, most of them come from Ghana, but
right.
they do pretend they're from Nigeria, which is funny. But that's a separate story.
Okay.
Yeah, when you look at the numbers, Nigeria is one of the most corrupt countries in the world by many factors, unfortunately, and these are the data coming from different institutions, both global and Nigerian institutions. And the funny thing, again, funny/dramatic thing, is that the most corrupt institution in Nigeria is the Nigerian police. So not the ministry, not the banks, not some other institution, it's the police, which is sad. And Nigerian police is being involved in civil disputes on a scale like 10 times higher than in any economy, any country in the world. So there's definitely a problem there. Having said that, I still consider myself a lucky guy. I don't want to share too much of my life story, but yes, my problem was in Nigeria. I had a huge problems where my bank's account were frozen, my house was raided, and I almost spent 20 years in jail. But the people that were taking advantage of the problems of the Nigerian system were actually American and Indian, and I actually won the case against the Nigerian police in the Nigerian federal court, the highest instance, and it wouldn't be possible if it was all that bad. And although that story of mine is obviously so extreme, it gets a lot of attention, both from media and business and so on. I still consider myself a lucky guy, and I believe I am a pretty good promoter of running business in the region.
Yes.
Because yes, there are challenges, but the risk is worth the reward, or the reward is worth the risk, I should say.
Yes.
So statistically, for me personally, it wasn't that bad. I almost, finished my life business-wise, if not personally, once. But this was a one instance. It was an extreme one, but one instance. And I had hundreds of other business situations or opportunities or dangerous, potentially risky business situations I've put myself in when I was lucky, when something could go wrong, but it hadn't. So I am really trying to gain attention by that extreme situation that happened to me. But then by having your attention, I'm trying to tell you, hey, now that I have your attention, it's not that bad. You just have to be aware of certain risks that are here that you would never expect if you're used to running a business in a more developed economy, like, UK or Switzerland or Germany.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's good, because I think you're right. There needs to be probably one bad story, and that will get repeated many times, but there's probably 10 positives, but it's probably not initially as compelling. And there are definitely issues over there, but I suppose that they won't necessarily be able to sort those issues out alone. They do need help, international help.
Correct. I mean, you need that checks and balances coming from the outside. We could talk for hours about the problems of facing the problems that African economies are facing, starting from the colonization. I always laugh that there's only one thing that Europeans did to Africa that is worse than the colonization itself, and it's the way Europe decolonized Africa, because it has left the administration structure and the economic power distribution and so on is as if it was designed to still continue to be weak, because once it's weak, it's easier to control from the outside and so on. Those are the issues. But speaking of also, enforcing the negative stereotype, I think there are two issues here. There are companies which are making so much money out of Africa. Let's just say, okay, maybe airlines is not the most updated case anymore, but before COVID, airlines, the flights to and from Africa and within Africa were one of the most high margin flights worldwide. Consumption of alcohol, wine, spirits, whiskey, champagne, those big producers from France or Heineken, for example, from Netherlands, if I'm correct, they control 70% of the market, if I'm not wrong, of, for example, Nigeria. But when you ask them, how's business in Nigeria, they will tell you, oh my God, man, I was just kidnapped almost twice last week. Because they kind of are keeping the competition away by the lack of transparency and that aspect of fear. Yeah.
Yes.
And then you have those NGOs. I mean, there's been trillions of dollars being pushed to Africa in the last 5 to 6 decades. Obviously, that money is not being properly managed. But you could see amazing, not in a positive way, but amazingly big organizations that are focused on distributing the charity money, which are so big and so detached from the problem itself. They're almost like making money on keeping the problem alive. And then what do? one TV ad in CNN on BBC with a kid with a big belly telling you, just pay $9 per month. We're going to help that kid. That goes a long way in terms of enforcing negative business stereotype, right? Because you will now remember that image. This is obviously a huge problem in Africa, but this is not the only view of Africa. I've been living in Africa for the last 8 years, and I've never been to a safari. I'm always pale. My Africa is airports, office buildings, huge cities. Lagos, 20 million people. Cairo, 20 million people. Johannesburg, 5, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Huge economies. You have to put that story also across, because in business, I don't know, I think it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You have to say that it's good. You have to sometimes, focus on the positive message only, because you're going to bring the investors, you're going to bring the entrepreneurs, and just by bringing them and their money, you actually make the situation better. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that works both ways.
Yes, and there's corruption in lots of different countries, and I've seen that. I've done business internationally. I remember, for instance, in Bulgaria, where respectable families would say to their children, work hard at school, get a job with the government, and then you're made, because you get bribes. That almost is accepted, and has been legitimized. And I've seen that in other countries as well. It becomes part of their culture. It becomes acceptable. It becomes almost the sort of the middle class way of steering your children, which that's difficult, because that's a generational thing as well. How do you break that?
Actually, so for me, it was just so natural to see, and it was still shocking, but not as shocking as maybe as someone my age, because I was this young generation of hungry business guys. I was 27 when I moved to Nigeria, so I was very unexperienced still in business. But, there's a reason why you call Nigeria Russia without snow. These corruption challenges are just a part of certain economy growth, and you either break through that problem or you never do, and you stay in that vicious cycle. But huge corruption problems were in Poland in the early 90s when we switched from communism into capitalism, the wild privatization, which was also the case in Russia. So it's as if the mentality of Polish entrepreneurs, so me still being inexperienced but being Polish and either being exposed to those wild markets challenges directly or indirectly, because again, I wasn't that experienced, but I heard stories, so I was indirectly exposed to that while doing business in Poland or Ukraine in the early 2000s. I somehow was able to get prepared, maybe not trust people that too early, understand that just because you have a contract doesn't mean you're secured in any way. But even though, it still happened what happened. But it is a big shock. I've noticed that people from Europe trying to do business in, let's just say Africa, let me just generalize once, but let's remember this is 54 countries and 1 billion of people and hundreds of ethnic groups.
Yes, true.
You either have a very small company when you're able to micromanage everything, and remember every employee by name and know where he's living and what he's doing, or you have those huge companies, and then you can afford to bring your own middle managers because you kind of can't break through that trust. So those are the two types of foreign managed, foreign driven, foreign invested companies being run in countries like Nigeria or Kenya, simply because there's the corruption problem, there's this cultural difference problem, that one side that is just afraid to break through and take the risk and prefers to overpay just by bringing their own people because they think this way they're securing themselves.
Right.
But scams being made by those foreign employees or foreign investors that not investors, employees or managers being brought because they were supposed to be the ones to trust. Those people are the biggest scammers. That's another. Wow. That's another story. So essentially, what I'm trying to say, everything is just so complicated, and there's so many intricacies here, and the last thing we should do is to believe the stereotypes.
Yeah, I mean, there's never one answer to situations like this, and it's like business itself. That's part of the intrigue, isn't it? If there was just the one answer, we'd all be doing well, and the business would be easy, but it probably wouldn't be the challenge that it is. And you've been involved in lots of different businesses. Let's talk about a few of those. I noticed one of them, RTB, retargeting tech. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is after I've had all my African adventures with e-commerce, we've built software, hospitality software, and so on. Right now, I'm really focused on two types of businesses because at some point I had just too many of them. And while you're distracted, first of all, you don't have control because you're a minority investor, so you can't really change much. Then you're distracted. But anyway, so RTB House is an agency really that has a couple years ago developed its own deep learning technology that allows you to use the robot to run your marketing budgets instead of a human. And in AI is a buzzword in many business areas. It's still a buzzword and it doesn't really change much. But if there's one thing that AI is much, much superior to in comparison to a human, it's analyzing big sets of data. So unfortunately or unfortunately, people are at some level people can be divided into groups in terms of their behaviors. And we came up with this technology that analyzes all the people on the internet, and based on your past behavior, I can predict basically what you're going to buy in the future. So we're the big brothers of the world. There's a lot of negative connotation also towards that what we're doing. There's a lot of ethical discussion about what we're doing. So this is a very challenging space.
But don't you think
yeah.
that is partly due to the fact that this is something that is very new and people are unaware, because targeting has been going on long before the computer. Targeting has happened because people have been targeted by advertising agencies based upon behavior for decades. But because it's now technology, and I suppose people are seeing it as sort of almost non-human robots that are doing this, because it's technology, there's an increased level of suspicion. But it's always happened.
It has also become so pretty damn good because of AI.
Yes.
That it's actually that good. People think that, oh my God, someone is spying on me. I'm going to give you an example. There's ongoing discussion on the social media. This doesn't really relate to us per se, but to the sector of people actually thinking that Facebook is listening to you.
Yes.
Because you just spoke about something. You just, my friend just...
Oh, yes, I see what you mean. Yes.
He said, like, I'm going to my friend's wedding, and we were just talking to my friend about his wedding. And 2 hours after, I got this offer to this flight ticket to my friend's wedding destination. Yeah, and he thinks that, oh my God, they're listening to me. This is illegal and so on. Yes. But then I'm asking him a question. I mean, have you liked the event of your friend's wedding that he opened on Facebook? Because, you can open an event, people like it, people say that they're going there. Yes. Have you checked on Google, for example, the destination and flight ticket prices or hotels prices and so on? You are leaving so many traces on the internet willingly, and you agree to it. And it's so obvious to sometimes certain your consumer behavior and expectations because of how many traits you're leaving that no one really needs to listen to you. Not sure if this is true, but someone has said that after you are liking 300 different pages on Facebook, this conversation is a little bit too much about Facebook, but this is just such a great symptomatic example, is that after you like 300 different pages on Facebook and answer like 5 surveys, Facebook already knows more about you than your girlfriend that you've been dating for the last 2 years.
Yes.
So to sum up, people are getting freaked out a little bit because it has become so good by an order of magnitude in the last couple of years, thanks to the growth in AI. And we're just also not used to it, and we don't know how to deal with it.
It's new. In the same way that when electricity was first beamed into people's homes, there was awareness about that. They thought it would give them illnesses. They were big, they thought electricity. It was viewed with suspicion by a lot of people because it was new and they didn't fully understand it.
Yeah, exactly. And essentially that's what RTB House has been doing. We've been trying to learn how to take advantage of all that data that is now accessible. We call data being the new oil in the world. And we started selling this technology to different brands. We've been able to work with big guys like Walmart, like Booking.com, a couple of big airlines. Obviously, they're not as big as they used to be, and hopefully they will come back.
Yes.
But any business that sits on a lot of data is interested or should be interested in being able to understand that data, because that data can tell you what you should sell at what price and when in order to sell more, because essentially that's what business is about. And that's what RTB House is doing. And we've been growing pretty nicely in the last couple of years. We have 10 offices in a couple of countries. We run campaigns for more than 1,000 clients. I'm responsible personally now for our African operations because that has been my main market.
What's the biggest and most useful lesson that you've learned working with RTB?
That's a good question. What's the... So RTB House was my first business that was a pure B2B business. So when you look at everything that I've been doing before RTB House, we were mainly selling to an individual client. And RTB House is the first business I'm involved in where actually our clients are other companies.
Right.
And they have their own end users, which are individual clients. And building this African office from scratch, for example, I had to learn as an entrepreneur and as a manager how to build a business that is oriented to providing services to another big companies. And we usually work only with big companies because they have to have big sets of data, big pool of clients for them to see the value in our technology, because my technology can increase your revenue by, let's say, 3%. So in order for this to really move the needle, you have to be big in the first place.
Yes.
So I essentially learned the basics of building a business, which is a B2B business, how to approach big organizations, how to do cold emailing, how to find those decision makers. I've learned a lot of basic skills of closing B2B deals, because although I've been in the online space for more than 10 years now, most of my businesses were always focused on the end user. It's a genetically totally different business, whether it's B2C or B2B, how you build it from ground up, I believe.
And how do you close those deals? What have you learned?
I have learned that doesn't matter how big the size of the deal is, it all boils down to human interactions.
Yes.
And funnily enough, B2B business for me is way more human than B2C business, because when you are running campaigns and you have 10,000 clients per week, a client becomes a number. It's all about statistics and spending money on Google and different type of marketing channels. But when it's a B2B, it actually boils down to having proper human interactions. I've realized that the bigger the size of the deal is, the more the company needs to trust you, that closes the deal with you. And trust grows, what's the word in English, exponentially.
Yes. It's
related to human-human interaction. The human-human interaction for me is responsible for 90% of whether the deal is going to be closed or not. 10% is audit, due diligence, insurance, and negotiating paragraphs and wording of the contract.
I'm so glad you said that, Marek. It was worth inviting you onto this podcast just for you to say that one thing, because I've been having this conversation with clients and companies in the B2B software sector for years. And so many of them believe that when it's B2B, it's business and it's logic. And it's not. And it never has been.
Oh no.
And it's about being human, and it's about them trusting you, and it's about emotional buy-in. And you know, a great point, well made. So thank you very much for that one. In fact, I think we're going to take that as a clip and we're going to send that out to promote this podcast. That's brilliant, because that is absolutely spot on.
I guess you have to be in the sector for a while to understand that.
Yeah.
Because most of the lessons you learn after years are the easiest ones, but the ones are somehow hardest to see.
Yes. I think also because in the software sector, we're talking to people whose lives it's about logic. There's a lot of logic in coding, and they are engineers. So I understand that. But when it comes down to human beings, we are a different beast, and you really need to take that into account. There was a couple of other things that sort of caught my eye when I was looking through your profile. Sunroof, Swedish company. Tell us a bit about that. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, a couple of things here which led me to this investment, and now I'm kind of like my involvement is increasingly growing from RTB house to Sunroof. Now I'm more or less half. I was looking for a sector which will be outside my comfort zone, because I've been in this e-commerce / technology / online business in Africa. So mainly Egypt, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa, because those are the 4 main hubs. I've been doing this for 8 years already. And it somehow got easier and easier because you already know people, you know the sector. Every deal is somehow easier to make. But then you realize you're closing yourself. You're not learning anymore. You're entering this routine phase. And you want to keep your mind always out of comfort zone in order to keep the neuroplasticity, to keep growing, to keep young, to keep being interested and passionate about what you're doing. So I knew I have to look for something totally out of my comfort zone. And all my life, I've been dealing with non-physical things, software, services, websites, and so on.
Yeah.
I never had a business where I touch the product that I produce. And so this was it. I was scared of that. I was scared that my container will get stolen, that my product will break, and so on and so on. So that was a very out of comfort zone experience for me. Then, because of my personal life, my girlfriend living in Spain, I was also trying to be more. I wanted to have more business reasons to be in Europe, not just to be with my girlfriend and see my family and be like always focused on Africa business-wise. And obviously, solar energy and growth are now happening mainly in Europe, also mainly because the government incentives. So this is a very great place to be in for the next couple of years. And then third of all, I just wanted to also get myself involved in a business that, in a way, is doing something good. I don't know how cheesy it sounds, but it seems like putting your money and focus on energy into renewable energy sources is the right thing to do now, considering what's happening in the world. That's how I see it.
Definitely. And just briefly, just to explain, my understanding is that it's it was described as a beautiful solar panel.
Yeah, so this is something that Tesla Roof is getting involved in. So Elon Musk doing amazing PR around it. Sunroof is a Swedish company, 6 years on the market, made in Sweden, already profitable. Me and my partners, we decided to invest in it and make it a global business. There's this very interesting technology switch happening. I believe that we will be in 5 years from now or in 10 years from now, we will look at all those roofs with solar panels on top of it at something so ugly that we would never believe. Why would we ever put that ugly thing on top of it in the first place?
Yeah.
Because you can have a roof that is already solar and you don't even know that it's solar. It looks like a beautiful modern roof and it has the capacity of a roof and it has the capacity of a solar panel, so 2-in-1. This particular technology used to be very expensive, but it's not anymore since there's been a big progress in solar technologies in the last 3 years. So we see like the second big wave of solar energy again becoming increasingly relevant simply because the technology has become affordable and there's a realistic ROI. You can make your money back in 2 or 3 years, which for an individual client is something that already makes sense. And that's what you're doing. It's a 2-in-1 roof. And also at the same time, we and my business partners, we come from technology background. We want this roof to be for the Sunroof company, what Macintosh computer was for Apple. We believe that this is just one piece of the puzzle. In many years from now, or not so many, I'm talking about 10 to 15, everyone will be producing some sort of energy in your own household. It's probably going to be solar. I can't imagine you having your own micronuclear plant in the basement.
Probably not.
But what's going to be very important, again, we're entering the software phase, is that there will be a software needed that will make the decision for you whether you need to store the energy or you want to give it back to the grid, or you want to charge your electric car. because the electricity prices will fluctuate, and you will need to have a very smart system to optimize the energy cost versus sales versus warehousing for your particular case. And there's a lot of AI involved. And Tesla with Elon Musk, they are already doing this. We've also acquired a software company, again from Sweden, Sweden being at the forefront of this change really in Europe. So we're really looking at this, and we want to make this hardware business a software company in the 10 years to come. And it's very exciting for me.
Fantastic project and very worthy. Obviously, renewable energy. I mean, that's something that this planet desperately needs. What are the plans for Marek for the future? What are you going to be aiming to achieve? What are your sort of big ambitions over the next decade? What do you want? What are you looking for?
Yeah, so I've literally closed, because of the book, literally and figuratively closed certain chapter of my life. I had a very strange 2 years where I couldn't really be, active in business because I couldn't travel. I was stuck in one country. My passport was taken. Yes. I was fighting my case in 3 courts at once, in Poland, in France, and in Nigeria, because I had to appeal to Interpol. One of the reasons why I wrote this book is to put attention to my case to Interpol so they deal with my case faster. Another problem is that if it wasn't for the book, maybe it would take me 5 years not to solve this, simply because how many issues like that of abusing certain regulations of Interpol by people with money in economies like Nigeria, how big of a problem that is. So I've closed that chapter. It was also for me an important psychotherapy to deal with those stresses and all those demons and all the nightmares I essentially went through. Then I had 6 months of micro vacation where I focused on book promotion. I traveled a little bit. I was enjoying being able to travel. You can't imagine how enjoyable that is once, because I spent a night in jail. But then they gave me my passport back and they just let me out. And I stayed on the street and I started crying that I can actually go to a coffee shop and get myself a coffee because I can. My freedom is not taken. Yes. What an experience for me that was to really appreciate what you have. And now what I promised myself is that whatever I'm going to involve myself in, this is something I want to stay in for 10 years. Because it really resonates with me what Bill Gates or someone else said, that we think that we overvalue how much we can achieve in 1 year. So many times we just get disappointed, but we undervalue how much we can achieve if we stick to one project for 10 years. Yes. And I looked back at the last 15 years really of all my professional career, because in total it's been 15 years. And I've realized that I've been changing projects after 3 years, max, or even faster. I mean, you can't build anything significant in 3 years. Let's be honest, if you really have some big ambitions. So as frightening as it is for me, I realized that I've had this consultant personality where I just get bored too easily. And I want to stick to one business for the next 10 years. It's most likely going to be Sunroof or RTB House, one of them. Because it's hard to do two things at once for too long. Yes. And I want to stick to it for 10 years and see how much change, how much value I can bring and build if you stick to one business for 10 years. Because for me, that's a new thing.
Yes, focus. It sounds like, you're leaving something behind, which is a bad experience, but you can take positives from that and you can use that in your future. And you want to have the power of focus moving forward.
Oh, yeah. That's what my book is all about, really. I was able to be thankful to the things that happened to me because I came out of this stronger.
Yes.
And that's how you should look at it.
Excellent mental approach. And, I wish you all the best with your book. And if I can help in any way on that side, we will promote that as part of this podcast. It's available on Amazon now. Chasing Black Unicorns is the title. What else do I need to say about it, Marek? How do I get people to buy it? Well, they've heard the part of the story, so they should know. They should be intrigued.
I think it's worth mentioning that all the revenue from this book goes into a charity, which I have launched with my fiancée. There's this orphanage school in Nigeria, in Borno State, in a city called Maiduguri, where there's a lot of activity of Boko Haram. There's this orphan school that we are kind of a patron zone. So we always support them with school materials, we're buying, essentially building a new building and so on and so on. Anyway, all the revenue from the book sales, as well as my speaking engagement related to the book, go into this foundation and into this school, which you can also read about if you just check chasingblackunicorns.com. So worst case, the book acts as a proper fire starter for your for your small fire in the house. It's a good quality piper. And you're supporting foundation. But I also hope that you might enjoy the book itself, because it's a combination of biography stories which are supposed to make you laugh or scared, but then you have business insights in between. So there's a knowledge which is shown in a way that it's supposed to be entertaining. That's how I envision it, just like comedians do. They make you laugh, but in the end, there's a very intelligent message.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Marek, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a fantastic podcast. You've got a very worthy cause there, and I will help to promote the book in any way that I can. I'm also going to say to you a commitment. I'm going to have you back on. We're going to get you back onto this podcast, because I think that there's other stories to tell here. But for now, I normally finish the podcast by promoting something about Boss It. But I think that would feel a bit inane after today's discussion with you. So I would say to everybody that's listening this, go out now. You don't have to go out. You just go onto Amazon and buy Chasing Black Unicorns. Buy Marek. Help me out with your surname, Marek.
Zmyslowski.
Oh, I can spell it for you. Zmyslowski. I can't pronounce it, but I can spell it. Thank you very much, Marek. It's been brilliant having you on. And as I say, go buy the book now. I'm going to do exactly the same within the next 5 minutes. I promise all of you, I'll have bought a copy of that book. Go do the same. Thank you very much, Marek. It's been brilliant having you.
It was great. Thank you so much again. And let's chat soon.